Chapter 1. The Photograph on the Stairs. My grandmother's house had a staircase with photographs on the wall, going all the way up. Generations of family, weddings, graduations, holidays. The kind of wall that accumulates over 60 years and becomes its own kind of history. I had walked past those photographs hundreds of times over the course of my childhood, and I knew them the way you know things you have seen so often. They stop registering. When my grandmother died, we sold the house. Before the sale was finalized, I went back one last time to collect some things she had left me. Some books, some china, a clock that had been in the family for a long time. I was alone in the house for the last time. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. I walked up the staircase past the wall of photographs. I was not looking at them specifically. I was thinking about what I needed to collect and how long it would take and whether I had time to stop for gas on the way home. At the top of the stairs I stopped. Something had been different on the way up. I turned around and looked at the wall of photographs. I have thought many times about how to describe what I saw, and I have not found a way that doesn't sound like the beginning of something I don't want to say. I will say it plainly. In a photograph I had seen hundreds of times, a family Christmas, my grandparents' living room, 12 people around a table. There was now a 13th person visible in the background, standing in the hallway behind the dining room, partially in shadow. Not hidden, not obscured, simply there, in a photograph that I had looked at for 30 years and had never been there before. I took the photograph off the wall. I looked at it for a long time in the better light at the top of the stairs. The figure was there, an adult, standing in the hallway, facing the dining room, watching the people at the table. I could not make out features. I could make out that the person was standing with a particular stillness, the stillness of someone who does not expect to be seen and is not moving so as not to be noticed. I took the photograph with me when I left. It is in a drawer in my desk now. I have shown it to 3 people, my mother, my brother, and a friend who is a photographer. My mother said she didn't see anyone in the hallway. My brother said he thought he could see something but wasn't sure. My photographer friend enlarged the relevant section of the image on her computer and sat looking at it for a while before saying, carefully, that the figure appeared to be consistent with the rest of the image in terms of lighting and grain and did not appear to have been added. I have not decided what to do with this information. I have not decided what it means that someone was standing in my grandmother's hallway at a Christmas dinner 60 years ago, and nobody at the table remembered them, and no one in my family recognized them, and they were not in the photograph. The last time I looked, which was 30 years of looking. I think about who it was. I think about whether they were watching the family or watching for something else. I think about the particular stillness of someone who doesn't expect to be seen. I think about whether the photograph changed or whether I changed. Mino Placiura. Chapter 2. The Basement Window. I grew up in a house with a finished basement. My father had put a lot of work into it. Carpeting, a television, a couch, a small bar area he never used. It was the room where we watched movies and where I had friends over, and where I spent a significant portion of my teenage years. I was entirely comfortable in that basement. I had no particular feelings about it one way or another until the night I noticed the window. The basement had 2 small windows set high on the wall, at ground level, the kind of windows that let in a strip of light during the day and showed you a ground level view of the yard. I had never paid much attention to them. They were small and high and looked out at the grass. I was 15, alone in the basement watching television late on a Saturday night. I looked up at the left window for no particular reason, some peripheral movement, or just the way your eyes move when you've been staring at a screen for a long time. There was a face looking in, not fully visible. The window was small and the angle was difficult, but unmistakably a face. Close to the glass, looking down into the basement, I could see the eyes clearly. They were looking directly at me. I did not move. I sat completely still on the couch and looked at the face in the window, and the face looked back at me, and I do not know how long this lasted, because time stopped making normal sense. Then the face withdrew from the window. I watched the space where it had been for a long time. Then I went upstairs and told my parents there was someone in the yard. My father went out with a flashlight. He found nothing, no person, no footprints in the garden below the window, nothing to indicate anyone had been there. He suggested an animal, a raccoon perhaps, though I did not see how a raccoon accounted for eyes at face height looking directly at me.
I did not go back to the basement that night. I did not tell my father what I had seen specifically, because I could tell by the way he was looking at me that the conversation was going in a direction I didn't want to go, toward being 15 and having an overactive imagination on a Saturday night.
The face did not appear again. I continued using the basement. I continued watching television there, having friends over, spending my teenage years in the carpeted room my father had built. I sat on the same couch. I watched the same television, but I always knew where those windows were. Even now, decades later, when I am in any basement with high ground level windows, I know where they are. I know the angle from outside. I know what can be seen from out there, looking in. I know what it looks like when something is looking back. It's fruit. Chapter 3, What My Son Told Me. My son is 4 years old. He is articulate for his age. He has been talking in full sentences since he was 2.5, and he has the particular earnestness of a child who has not yet learned that some things are better left unsaid. This means that, when he tells me things, I listen carefully, because he is not old enough to understand what he should keep to himself. He told me about the man in his room about 6 months ago, not in a frightening way. Conversationally, the way children mention things at breakfast between bites of toast, the way they might mention that they want a dog or that a friend was mean to them at playgroup. He said there was a man who stood in his room at night sometimes. I asked him to tell me more about the man. He said the man stood in the corner by the window. I asked what the man looked like. He thought about it and said he was tall, and he stood very still, and he didn't say anything. I asked if the man had ever said anything to him. He said no, he just stood there. I asked if the man frightened him. He said no, he was just there. I checked my son's room that night after he was asleep. Empty, obviously. I checked the window, secure, locked, ground floor room, but a long drop from outside. I stood in the corner by the window where my son said the man stood and looked at the room from that angle and thought about what you could see from there. You could see the bed clearly. You could see my son sleeping. I asked him about it again a few days later, casually, to see if it was a game or a story or something he had seen on television. He said the man had been there again the night before. He said the man was there most nights. He said he didn't mind because the man was quiet. I changed the furniture around, so there was nothing in the corner by the window for a man to stand in. I told myself this was rational. I told myself I was managing the space in a way that addressed my son's sleep environment. My son noticed immediately. He said I had moved everything. I said I was trying a new arrangement. He said that was okay. The man would just stand somewhere else. I asked him where. He pointed to the corner by the door. It has been 6 months. My son mentions the man occasionally, the same way he mentions other things that are part of his daily experience. The man is quiet. The man stands still. The man doesn't say anything. Last week I asked my son what the man was doing in his room. My son considered this question with the seriousness he brings to important questions. Then he said, waiting. I asked what the man was waiting for. My son said he didn't know. He said he had asked, but the man hadn't said. He finished his breakfast and asked if he could watch television, and I said yes, and he went into the other room, and I sat at the kitchen table for a while, thinking about a man who stands quietly in my 4-year-old son's room every night, waiting for something he won't name while my son sleeps. I have not decided what to do with this yet. I do not know what the right thing to do is.
I check on my son every night before I go to bed, which I have always done, and every night the room is empty except for my son sleeping, which has always been the case.
But I stand in the doorway a little longer now, and I look at the corners more carefully, and sometimes I think I understand why the man doesn't say what he's waiting for, because some things you are better off not knowing until they're ready to tell you.